Hello, 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 hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Friday. I hope that everyone's doing well this week and dealing with this weird weather that apparently Ohio decided to throw us today. Um, Sorry we're running a little bit late for the show today. Had some technical issues, but hopefully we've got all those ironed out now. And because of those technical issues, we're actually going to flip the order a little bit for today's show. Typically, we would start with headlines and then move on to a guest or an interview with a guest live. But today, because we're running a little bit behind, we're going to start with the interview and then we'll go on to headlines. As a quick introduction, I'm Jalen Grisso, one of the co-founders of Matter News and currently the editor as well. In case you missed our last episode, this is a new show that we're producing with the hopes of bringing you more regular updates on policing and development. While working on some of our bigger stories, we often hear lots of news that informs our stories but doesn't necessarily make it out in front of you all. So we wanted to create an avenue to share those smaller bits of information that we're getting along the way to keep all of you informed as we are learning as well. And there's really no better way to do that than going live and having this kind of informal chat with all of you. Typically, the show will include two parts, as I mentioned. The first half will usually focus on recent news, and the second half will be an interview. Both of those will be present today. We'll just be flipping the order a little bit. And today's guest, actually, is hoping to alleviate the housing affordability crisis by 3D printing houses. Yeah, you heard me right on that. So with that, I'll introduce our guest, and we'll start with an interview with her. All right. Okay, so today's guest is Anna Cheniuntai. I hope I got that last name right. We practiced earlier. Okay, great. And she is the CEO and founder of Apis Cor. I'm going to actually pause here for a second, and I really should have asked this earlier. My apologies, Anna. Are your pronouns she, her?
Can you say again?
What are your pronouns?
What do you mean?
Do you go by she, her pronouns?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Just
Sorry,
wanted to check.
I've never been asked this question before. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Anna is the CEO and founder of an organization called Apis Cor. By the age of 22, Anna had earned a degree in space physics and successfully managed a massive $5 million project deploying ground navigation system for the 2014 Olympic Games. But she then set out to disrupt the construction industry with a novel innovation in automation and robotics. Today, Anna is the co-founder and CEO of Apis Cor, as I mentioned, the pioneer of advanced robotic 3D printing technology for construction. Apis Cor 3D prints full-scale buildings on Earth and soon on Mars and the Moon. All right, Anna, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it tremendously. And so on that note, let's go ahead and start with our first question, which is tell us a little bit about Apis Cor and what you all plan to do.
the commercial building fully approved and permitted as a residential, as a commercial building in Boca Chica, Texas. And so now we're pretty busy with the scaling the technology and bring it to the actual application and how we can expedite the transition from the, manual construction, which relies on the very shortened skilled labor. So how we can transition to the faster and cheaper way of construction.
Fascinating. Wow, that's a really helpful overview, and hits on some of the things that I wanted to talk about with some of my other questions. But we'll dive into those a little bit more. So you said that the materials that you're using are a type of concrete. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and I love that you mentioned that it's a little bit bigger than your desktop printer. I would assume it would probably have to be.
Yeah, so the machine that we use, it's like bigger, right? Because we need to 3D print bigger objects, like actual houses. But actually, there are a lot of other equipment in the market that also use to 3D print houses. We're not the only company doing this. So some of the features that really kind of make us really different is the compact dimensions of the machine on the 3D printer that we use. So you don't need to have like 10 people just to deploy or transport the large machine. You just need to have a pickup truck and flatbed trailer, and you use the joystick to wheel the printer to the flatbed trailer or to the concrete slab. So, for example, just me alone, I can simply bring the printer to any construction site when I want to 3D print a house. And basically, women like me, now we can have access to the construction industry, right? And start doing the home building industry, building business, because now with this technology, we don't need to hire all of the, skilled labor, which is, again, pretty limited today. And, technology has really transformed the market and opportunity. It provides more opportunities for the people who before, for example, didn't really have opportunity to be in the male-dominated construction industry. But again, today with the technology, it's getting like it could be a completely different story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point about the fact that could help disrupt the industry a bit and have it be a little less male dominated because of the ease of access to that, honestly.
Exactly.
And honestly, that sounds so fun. Now I just want to like wheel a little 3D printer up onto a truck. So you mentioned that it was concrete primarily used in the materials. Is that what most of the materials are? Because I looked on the website and most of the houses look like the same types of houses that you would normally expect, like the same type of style and structure that you would expect from more traditional building. Are all of the materials 3D printed? If so, how does that work with like cabinets and like paneling and like things like that?
Oh yeah, so basically 3D printed houses, they really look pretty the same as a traditional built house, but the technology also provides the opportunity to 3D print curved walls or like a unique shape that before with the traditional construction methods was very expensive or even like not possible at all to do. So you can see houses that will like feature the unique design and unique architecture styles, I would say. But the material that we use, it's pretty like a concrete-like material. What does it mean? So basically, it's not like the regular concrete, because regular concrete cannot be extruded. It's basically as a puddle. But for the 3D printing technology, we need to like lay down like the layers, right? Like concrete sausages, I would say. And so it's kind of like an extrudable concrete. So it contains some of the cement, sand, and some additives that basically makes all of the magic and turn the concrete to the extrudable concrete with all of the viscosity, setting time, something like this. But technology is really today is like how to 3D print the wall structures. So all of the remaining part of the house, like a concrete slab, roof, or windows installation, and like finishes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, it's still done traditionally. So basically, once the 3D printed walls 3D printed, then the subcontractor for the electrical and plumbing, for example, come in and install the all of the fixtures and all of the system. And basically, the subcontractors, if you don't tell them that this house is 3D printed, they just will not see the difference, and they're like, okay, I will go and do my work as I did it before. So, but nevertheless, we see that the next step of the technology is how to really expedite all of the remaining construction the processes and elements. So our goal is to really like how to speed up the construction process from like a 8 to 12 month that is actually you will need to have today with the traditional construction, how to expedite it to like a 2 or 3 month to receive the finished house.
Okay, wow. And how long has that been about how long has that been about how long it's taken for the houses that you've already 3D printed? Because I know there's at least a few that you've already printed. So if you could tell us a little bit about those houses and the success with them, and also how long did they take to print? How well did some of these things that you're talking about pan out with those examples?
So the building in Dubai, it was a one-of-a-kind project, not just for us, for the entire industry. And it is a very huge building. So tons of materials extruded there. So it took 3 months, like the machine time, to 3D print the wall structures of that building. But that time was kind of stretched within 1.5 years. Because it's like a pretty, extensive construction project, and we also did a lot of research and development. We explored a lot of things, so it was a huge learning curve for us, and it was pretty like in the beginning. So the buildings that we 3D printed in the United States last year. So the house in Missouri, it took 63 hours to 3D print the walls, and it was like a stretch within I would say 10 days. Because you cannot work 24 hours per day, right? Sometimes it's the weather issues, something like this. But you really can expedite the time to 3D print the shell of the house. And then as of now, you really depends on the subcontractors who will come and install the roofing, something like this. So it was also exploring process for us too. My building in Boca Chica in Texas, we 3D printed and actually built it completely pretty fast, within 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we are evolving, and we know what needs to be be better and improved. And we really foresee that next year we can really get to the point when we can build or 3D print the entire houses much faster than the traditional construction.
Wow, that's fascinating, and I really appreciate you giving us more insight into those examples of what you've already done. I know that part of the hope with this, at least in the way that we've kind of talked about it prior to this interview, is that with this new building innovation that you'll be able to, or that at least with this new technology, we'll be able to produce a lot more houses a lot more quickly, right? And I think that you've kind of positioned that could help with some of the affordability issues that we've been having in lots of different housing markets, and Columbus is no exception to that. Tell us a little bit about how you think that this technology of 3D printing homes could help with housing affordability in kind of a bigger picture.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So again, like any automation and robotic solution, it's really helped to expedite the construction time and increase the productivity. So this is one of the really important key how to start providing affordable and available housing as well. Because today in the United States, for example, it's the huge problem with the inventory on the market. So even if you have money and you will not be able to buy the house right away, or sometimes if the new house get available on the market, it can be off the market in 2 days, and people come with the cash or whatever they can do just to get the house. So I would say it's affordability and availability of the houses, and it's kind of two different markets. For the affordable housing, we really need to figure out how to reduce the cost down and how to really build very affordably. And technology is a very strong response to that. Of course, at the point when we get to the very when we scaled up the technology. So in the beginning, every technology is pretty expensive. So we right now at the moment when we grow in, scaling, and this is how we can really get the technology really affordable. And for the affordable housing, so technology allows to 3D print really unique, I would say, wall structures. So you can really reduce cost on the finishing or on the insulation, because you can install the insulating materials inside the wall. So this is how you also reduce the cost on the labor or for example, other materials. So it's not just the walls, it's also all of the other links, materials, processes, and technologies that also get affected in a positive way by the technology. And so we working right now with the affordable housing groups in Miami-Dade and in South Carolina and in New Orleans, Louisiana. And so our goal for the next year to deliver the project that building can cost $88,000, pretty small, but it's really like a low cost housing, or the house like the $100,000. So it's really like a different project and requirements, but we are right now building the strategy, how we can tune and tailor the technology and all of the positive things that technology also brings to this, how we can achieve this. So we were actively working on it right now for the next year to bring it really on the ground for the affordable housing.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really interesting, the programs that you're talking about in Miami, New Orleans, and I think you mentioned one other place. What was the other one?
Yes, South Carolina.
In South Carolina, yeah. It's really interesting that you mentioned those projects, and you mentioned that the goal is to have houses, and this is the final product of houses would be available at 80,000 and 100,000. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we're working on how we actually can really tune and tailor the technology to meet that specific goal or like technical requirements. So in Miami-Dade, for example, they know that we want to provide this housing for this specific families. We know that they make this amount of money per year, right? So they can afford only this rent per month. So this is why we need these houses for this price. And of course, like okay, how we can do this, how we can make it happen, how technology can help us to make it happen. And of course, it's like the entire project, it's not just that we print the walls, we also, I would say, design and develop the overall project, like what else we can incorporate to really meet that goal of the price.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad that you brought that up because part of my question as well was that and I think, correct me if I'm wrong at all on this, but it sounds like the way that you're understanding the affordability is through kind of the availability that you're talking about, right? And this has been something that, like, at least our audiences would be very familiar with because there's been lots of talk about how we have just not been building enough. For example, there was a study a few years ago, I think it was 2018, from the Building Industry Association here locally that said that we are short like 8,000 units or so per year. And I don't know if those numbers are still where they're at, but that's kind of where we were then, and I would guess it's probably only increased since then. So I think the availability aspect that you're talking about absolutely is true, right? It limits some of those cash offers that you're talking about, and helps to like prohibit from folks being priced out, right? Like I know personally some folks that were a bit lower on the lower income side and were looking for houses that were closer to that 80 to 100,000 market that you were looking at, and maybe even lower than that. And they were just getting bought up by investors left and right because the housing market was so high in demand that those folks that were looking for a home rather than an investment were having a hard time with it. So I think the availability part is key, that you mentioned. But I also noticed for the houses that you at least are advertising on the website right now, those houses tend to range, and I think they're several bedrooms. If I remember, they're like 2 to 3 bedrooms per piece, and they tend to range from like 330,000 a year, or 330,000 to like 470,000, I think was the higher end of it, which isn't like outrageous by any means. But for example, the median home price in Columbus, I think, is around like 250,000. And so part of my question with the affordability was what the plan is within that realm, because those houses are a bit more expensive than we would expect for traditionally built houses across the board. Do you, and knowing that you have this other program going on with that kind of pilot program in Miami, do you anticipate that that'll be something that you guys will continue to pursue in that realm to like reduce the cost of individual houses, or is your focus more on creating more availability overall?
I would say really work on all of the directions. Because as a startup and as an industry pioneer, right, you really need to tackle all of the niches available within the market. So we work on the affordable housing program because we know how to apply the technology to really build affordable housing, like a very low cost, for example. But we also see that there is the other part of the market, people who just want to have a 3D printed house with all of the unique design. And this is more like, I would say, luxury market. because the price of the house, it's not just, just the walls or roof, for example. It's also all of the textures, finishes, and the same house, the same floor plan. You can build it for like a $200,000, and you can build the same house for like a $800,000, just because you have all of the very expensive cabinets, for example, finishes on the walls, all of the systems. So the houses that we also presented on the website, it's like how we can tackle this part of the market. And so for the affordable housing, it's really like we created I would say, the first industry affordable housing cooperative program. When we come to the affordable housing groups and say, like, what do you need? What's your real requirements? And let's just find a way how we can apply technology to this. And it's not really something like overnight that should happen overnight. It's really like 1 year when we really develop, the project. We learn all of the needs and like how the house should look like, what the system should be in this house, how the finishes should look like, and how we also can achieve all of this within this target price range. And our goal is really like how we can then scale this affordable housing cooperative program throughout the entire country. So we just started, with the affordable housing program. But I would say that the 3D printing technology for construction, it's so fast growing market right now, and a lot of opportunities and demand for this technology for affordable housing, available housing, luxury markets. So we just trying to, have experience in all of them. And because our goal as a company all the time is how to do the successful business, right? And how to scale the technology and get the technology in hands in all of the construction companies. And then they can decide what they do. Maybe the companies that are going to use our technology and equipment, they will focus only on the luxury market, right? Or other companies, they will use this tool, like a robotics tool, for their needs. For example, affordable housing construction. So this is what like a kind of we are doing right now as an industry pioneer.
Absolutely, and that makes a lot of sense. And like you mentioned, I think that it is important to make sure that we have housing for all levels of the market, because otherwise it'll affect anyone at any level, right? Wonderful. I think that's about all the questions that I have for you. Before we wrap up here, is there anything else that you want to add, or anywhere that you want folks to check out your work? Go ahead and let us know.
So first of all, thank you very much. That's a great opportunity to talk, and like I really like the point that you brought about the availability. You described it in such a great way. I think that I will going to borrow it from you for my next interviews, because availability, that's the problem. And in Florida, for example, this is something that regulates the price of the houses, because people want to. So the demand is much higher than the industry can supply. So I really appreciate that. Like talk to you on the same page, and you also brought me some insights as well. So thank you. That was a great experience, and I hope that it was pretty helpful for your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. I definitely think there's plenty of things, at least for me, to learn from this, but I'm sure that our audience will glean a lot too. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, y'all. We will be back in just a quick moment, and then I will give you the most recent news. Okay, and we are back. Thank you all so much for joining. Really great conversation with Anna. I've been excited to talk to her about this kind of more innovative and fun look at affordable housing. It's not very often we get to focus on a lot more hefty solutions, especially ones that tend to be as fun as wheeling a 3D printer onto a truck bed to build affordable homes. So I hope you guys all found that helpful and useful. As I might have mentioned in the past show, we will also be sharing that interview separately as a text Q&A, as well as sharing the video on our website. So if you missed it, feel free to check it out there. And as always, I'm open to feedback. So if you thought something was really interesting and wanted to hear more about it, really liked that guest, or had other suggestions for guests, as always, please hit me up. All right, with that, let's dive into the news for the last couple weeks. Okay, so today we're going to start with development. I did mention this during the last show, but as a quick refresher for anyone who did not catch that show, I have a very informal little setup over here with my headlines for the last couple weeks. I'll go basically in the order of what's on here. This week I'm going to start with development rather than policing, but we'll go directly in that order. And then, as I mentioned with the interview, we'll also be sending this information out via our email list, as well as publishing it online. So if you missed anything or wanted to be able to get a little bit more information or see some more of the sources for something I bring up, definitely be able to find out in any of those places. So with that, let's dive in. Okay, like I said, we're going to start with development. The first big news item for development is with the Little Turtle Roadway reconstruction project. That project has been a bit controversial and has been on and off for a while now, and has been officially stopped again after a judge issued a restraining order for the project on March 21st, and that's according to the Columbus Dispatch. The ruling was a result of a new lawsuit against the project alleging public corruption. The lawsuit alleges that the city improperly cleared area for the project and entered into an unlawful land swap. That agreement, the land swap agreement, would have gone to basically that land swap agreement was between the city and a private developer, Mo Dion, who actually has ties to former mayor of Columbus. So, my apologies, my notes are a little jumbled here and it's messing me up. Okay, so the land swap agreement was between the city and Dion, and the agreement would have allowed Dion, the developer, to be able to develop land that is currently the Little Turtle Roadway. In exchange, that developer would have given the city some land that they could have used to build a new roadway in that area. As I said, the way that the land swap went down was alleged to have been unlawful, and part of that is because it was never approved by City Council. Hearings on the new lawsuit were set to start this last week, so I will be checking in with that, and I will let you know if there are any updates on that front. The next bit of news we have is about affordable housing. Seems to be a bit of a theme of the day. So there's two new news items for affordable housing. The first is that several developers, including the Woda Cooper companies, Community Development for All People, and Nationwide Children's Hospital, broke ground on a new affordable housing development on Lockbourne Road here on Columbus's south side. I say here because that's where I live and am right now. They broke ground on the 21st on a 60-unit development on Lockbourne, as I said. Those units are expected to be around $670 to $1,000 a month, depending on income and size. They're specifically supposed to be earmarked for folks that make 40% AMI and 80% AMI. In other news for affordable housing, Habitat for Humanity just got a fairly sizable grant. Habitat for Humanity Mid-Ohio specifically is receiving $6.75 million to work to create more affordable housing. The organization said that money will be used to invest in land, equipment, and infrastructure that will help expand its ability to help folks find safe and secure affordable housing. This multi-million-dollar gift, the $6.75 million given to Habitat for Humanity Mid-Ohio, is part of a much bigger gift given to Habitat for Humanity International that actually totals $436 million, and that gift was given by novelist and philanthropist Mackenzie Scott. So with that money, hopefully we'll see a bit more affordable housing, and we'll definitely see an expansion of Habitat for Humanity's work here locally. All right, and that's most of it for development. Now we'll move into policing news. This first bit of news for policing is a bit of crossover between our two investigations and focuses on illegal dumping. For anyone that is not familiar, illegal dumping is the term that's used when folks put trash in containers they're not supposed to, leave trash on the streets, leave mattresses on the streets, things like that. The city is actually partnering with Central Ohio Crime Stoppers to try and stop illegal dumping throughout the city. This has been an issue that folks have talked about in several different areas that have especially been disinvested. The west side comes to mind predominantly as an area that's discussed this issue of illegal dumping pretty substantially in the last few years. In a press conference, Mayor Andrew Ginther said the plan was to, quote, help identify illegal dumping suspects caught on camera and hold them accountable for breaking the law. He went on to say, quote, our neighborhoods are not dumping grounds, and if you choose to dump in our neighborhoods, we're coming after you. The plan includes asking residents to take photos of illegal dumping suspects and report them to the city, which can be done anonymously. However, Central Ohio Crime Stoppers is also offering cash rewards to individuals who report illegal dumping suspects. And that was announced earlier last week. In other policing news, a Franklin County grand jury determined that there was no criminal wrongdoing from Columbus police officers in the killing of Joseph Jewell. Those Columbus police officers, Howard Brenner, Glenn Thivner, and Mark DeLillo, shot and killed Joseph Jewell, who was a 17-year-old, at a hotel room that he had been staying at. When officers arrived on the scene, after hearing reports that Joseph Jewell was in that hotel room, they arrived on the scene. Jewell fired one shot at officers, and officers returned fire, ultimately injuring and ultimately killing Jewell from his gunshot wounds, who later died at the hospital after the incident. Jewell was suspected of homicide. It was alleged. Let me back up. So Jewell was a homicide suspect. That's why police were responding to him for the murder of another 17-year-old, Enrique Forney Jr., who was killed in February of 2020. Who was killed last year, and then in February 2020 was when Joseph Jewell was killed. This year, March 18th, was when the grand jury determined there was no degree of unlawful criminal homicide in the incident, which is the metric that they used to determine whether or not there was criminal wrongdoing on the part of the officers. And finally, the last headline we have for today. On March 22nd, the mayor announced nearly $19 million investment in police cameras. These include both body-worn cameras and in-car cameras. There will be over 2,000 body-worn cameras added to the police's equipment and 450 in-car cameras. These cameras are, the investment in these cameras are for several reasons, including that both of these cameras will include several new features that have come up in recent years with several incidents of what many folks would allege as police misconduct and wrongdoing. The features that those cameras include an extended look-back feature, which allows viewers to see 2 minutes of footage before the camera was activated, which is a bit longer than what we've seen in the past. And it also includes automatic activation. So cameras will be automatically activated if an officer's weapon is removed from their utility belt, a cruiser's lights or sirens are activated, a rifle or shotgun rack is released, a cruiser accelerates to a high rate of speed, or a cruiser is involved in a collision. Any of those instances will automatically trigger the cameras to start activating, and as I said, we'll have a 2-minute look-back feature from that activation point. Training and deployment of new cameras is expected to be finished by March 31st of next year. All right, folks, I hope I didn't run through it too quick, but those are our headlines. That's our recent news for the last few weeks. I will be back in a couple weeks with more headlines and more news for you and a whole new guest. So that about wraps up what I've got for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me and bearing with us as we had some technical issues and kind of worked to figure it out. And as I mentioned before, and I'm going to keep mentioning it so that everyone is aware, we will be this whole video will be posted on all of our social platforms, and then we'll also be splitting it into the two parts, the interview and the headlines. The headlines will be sent out via email and posted on our website as a bit of a roundup of those news items, and then the interview itself will also be posted to our website in a text version as a Q&A, and will be sent out to our email list. So if you want to stay in the loop with any of these things, find out more information, or even just get this information straight into your inbox rather than coming to this live, make sure to sign up for our email newsletter at matternews.org/newsletter. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.